Right, hello and welcome everyone. We're excited to bring you the State of Independent Retail and Why the IHI Conference Matters Now webinar. This is the first of a series of webinars we're going to be doing leading up to the conference. As we're giving everyone a chance to dive deeper with us in this year's Independent Home Improvement Conference. And so we've obviously been in the planning mode. A lot of great things are coming together, and we wanted to take a moment and share that. And so to introduce myself, I'm Cody Goeppner, Education and Training Director here at North American Hardware and Paint Association. And we've got a great crew here today that's going to be bringing everyone into the loop of IHI. And so, Lindsey, I'll pass it off to you to start.
Thanks so much, Cody. Hey, happy afternoon, everybody. Happy Thursday. My name is Lindsey Thompson, and I am the editor and director of content development here at NHPA. And we're just so excited to be coming into our third year of the Independent Home Improvement Conference. We're bringing together retailers and vendors and industry partners and just the one place where we're all coming together. We're going to be at the JW Marriott at the Grande Lakes in Orlando. And so whether you're a longtime veteran in this industry or you're new to the channel, this is going to be the place to be to swap ideas, explore cutting edge technology, and just walk away with some fresh inspiration. I'm going to pass it off to Austin to introduce himself.
Hey everyone, and welcome. I am Austin Vance, Director of Sales and Marketing at the North American Hardware and Paint Association. The Independent Home Improvement Conference attendees, they come from every corner of the industry. They're store owners, suppliers, and innovators alike. And one thing that they all share is the passion for building better businesses. So if you're ready to take a step back from your day-to-day and really focus on strategies to help grow and improve your business, the IHI is the must-attend event of the year, and you can't afford to miss it. I'll kick it over to Craig and let him introduce himself.
Thank you, Austin. My name's Craig Cope. I'm the co-owner of the IHI Conference, and I am also the publisher of the Hardware Connection. And the way that I fit into this is that at one point in time, my wife and I ran the Hardware Conference for over a decade in Marco Island, and eventually joining that with the Independence Conference formed the IHI. And I'm truly excited for this third year. I can't wait to get to Orlando, and I hope that I see everybody there. So looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Craig, we're really excited to have you with us today. I mean, obviously, the history of this event is beyond what we're even bringing to the table today. And I'm excited to kind of tap into your perspective because you have been there from the beginning. We merged this together and just create a really unique experience that, as I was getting ready for today, I kept thinking of my first experience of like that IHI and going not just not really clear of what to expect. And part of me thinks that a lot of the industry sits there as well. Those that go obviously keep coming back, but I'm excited to kind of dive into, what this actually means to the industry and why it gets us so excited and hopefully why our passion is there. But I think you're going to have a lot of perspective to share with us today because while IHI has always been a critical touch point, right? We've built a very successful event. This year, it feels almost even more important for retailers to attend. With everything happening in the channel on a macroeconomic scale, so much of it is outside of the retailer's control, and how do we bring that in? And so I'd love to hear from you first, Craig, of like anecdotally, how are you hearing retailers are performing this year from that perspective? And then Lindsey, I'd love to hear some insights from you as well as you both have been engaging with them through their media brands.
Uh, for me, I guess there's really just two things is that yes, it does divvy up based upon where you're at geographically and kind of what markets do you serve with regards to pro, retail, whatever you may be. But that regardless, it seems like organic growth is almost virtually impossible right now. And people that are trying to get it are doing it via acquisitions. And obviously, there's increased interest with that. And I think the overarching one thing that I keep hearing in a lot of different ways is just the sheer volume of change that we've experienced over the last decade. When you think about it, you had a global pandemic, you had supply chains that got completely destroyed for multiple years, and then you have global unrest, you have energy prices spiking. It just seems like nobody has hit a pause button yet. And
Yeah.
that is kind of a lot of what I hear just in different snippets talking with people, is I think those are some of the biggest pain points. And where do you focus?
Yeah. Yeah. Lindsey, how about you?
Yeah, I'm hearing mostly flat to slightly down, but I'm also hearing a lot of retailers are pleasantly surprised that they're not more down. They're really actually happy, where they sit, considering what it could be. I think the winter across the United States, the actually having some winter weather in most places has really helped um, business in Q1 2026. It'll be interesting to see how Q2 and Q3 shake out. I speak only being here in the Midwest. May weather's kind of sucked. It's been ridiculously, colder than normal. And so, people, we haven't been able to get out and get any planting done. And so it'll be just really interesting to see how that shakes out. But yeah, for the most part, I'm hearing flat to just a little bit down, but happy that it's not more down.
Yeah. Just to add, over the last few months, especially in conversations these last fewer weeks with business leaders, not just in our industry, but across several industries, one thing seems to kind of be clear, and that's that everyone is feeling those pressures, right? And we can kind of just put an overarching umbrella as economic uncertainty. But I think in 2025, we were all feeling that. And by the end of it, we were comfortable with those uncertainties, and some of them kind of bled into 2026. But it just seems like all of that continues to be a contributing factor, even for the independent channel. And what's interesting to me personally is that the organizations that are moving forward successfully aren't necessarily the ones that are the biggest. They're not the ones that have the most resources, but they're the organizations that are willing to stay adaptable, that continuing to learn, intentionally creating space to think strategically instead of operating in a constant reaction mode. And that's probably my biggest theme is like I know personally and professionally, I don't perform the best when I'm reacting. And it seems like that's where the industry's at right now. It's just a lot of these leaders feel or think they're constantly reacting to whatever's being thrown at them. And so I really, with you too, I'd love your input of like, are there like, when you're talking to retailers, these biggest pain points or like these top pain points that you're hearing from retailers, and what are they talking about?
I generally have heard them bucket it up into three main points, and that is labor, it's attracting, retaining, and then even maintaining these people. How do you keep them in your organization? It seems like once you get them ready, they're off somewhere else. The second one is margin compression, and I already talked about that due to rising costs of everything. It's just becoming more and more difficult. And I think the last one and the most difficult one is the increasing consumer expectations. Just think about it, what we all expect as a consumer. I want same day delivery. If I don't want that, I want BOPUS. Oh, I want you to stay open until 9 o'clock on a Sunday night. So I need extended hours. Oh, I want a loyalty program. And I haven't even had a drone or robot delivery yet because I don't even know if I want that. But that's the next thing. And that's what I think everybody sees is how can you, as an independent retailer, meet those expectations with limited amount of resources?
Yeah, I think you just hit the nail on the head. And the hardest part is it's not like any of those horses are going out in front and you can take care of that first, right? Like everything is systematically kind of at that same level of urgency and intensity. And that can be overwhelming for them. And I think the important part is that we're not just at this like temporary slowdown anymore, right? Like this isn't where this is a temporary fix. I think that's what we all expected in 2025. It was like, oh, we'll just get through this period of time and in 2026 we'll start printing money again. But it just doesn't seem that that is what we are facing now. We're having to structurally build these just complex environment that's just different than how it was even just a few years ago. And so that growth does become harder to come by. And all of those points you just brought up, Craig, just, they affect that leadership, they affect operational alignment, decision making just becomes even more important in these times, but more convoluted at the same time. Lindsey, how about you?
Yeah, so just kind of riffing off what Craig said, I'm hearing that too, just this customer expectations is just kind of all over the all over the place. One of the stories that I just got into just recently is was on delivery. And so, Amazon has completely spoiled everybody with not even just next day, but like overnight or within an hour. And, so that was like the big thing. It's got to get there fast. But the studies that I was looking at for my story, customers are kind of now moving back towards it doesn't have to be so fast as long as it's accurate or as long as it's free. So man, just keeping up with what customers are expecting and what they want is definitely a pain point. Um, I'm hearing a lot of Gen Z. I have two Gen Zers in my house, and they're still teenagers and high schoolers now, but like that's the next group coming up. And so how do you get them into your stores and how do you get them buying from you and just really tapping into that next generation of buyers. Um, as well, just retailers are just overwhelmed. They're just spending so much time working in the business rather than on the business. It just they feel like they can't accomplish anything or even think about anything besides just the day to day and even the hour to hour tasks. They realize that, technology like AI can make them more efficient, but they don't have the time to research it, implement it, or manage it. And they're saying, we don't even know where to start and don't even have the time or energy to know where to start. So I think those are the biggest ones that I'm hearing as well. So we'd love to hear from our audience out there. If you want to pop it in the chat, what are some of those biggest pain points that you guys are facing right now? So we'd love to hear from you there in the chat.
Lindsay, one area that I want to, as we see these responses come in, and we can really focus on them as well. I want to talk about that technology piece for a second because it is truly becoming a disruptor, not just in our industry, but across the board. And we're kind of at the part of this wave or this arc that we're not sure what we should invest in. And typically, our industry is a little slow to invest in that, and because there's a lot of noise, we don't know, am I going to invest too early and then it's irrelevant? And it seems like AI is developing so quickly that it does feel like what's relevant today isn't going to be relevant tomorrow. And so there's this hesitation, there's this, do I engage with it? And there's at the same time, there's an understanding that we have to evolve, we have to embrace technology. But the challenge for most of those teams is that they are already stretched thin. They're already having to think of all these different areas. So it's not even that it's awareness anymore, right? It comes to it's a capacity. Is there alignment in your organization and figuring out what actually matters most? With technology disrupting it, is that actually bringing a solution to it, or do we feel like that's just adding complexities to the mix as well?
Yeah, that's, you bring in some really great points. And I think that, technology is going to be the only way to get out of this cycle of, we don't have time or, we're just spending so much time in the business. I mean, that's just the natural next step is being able to use these technologies, not to replace your employees, but to just make them more efficient, to get them back to what they do best, and that's serving your customers. And so, it's just how do we help retailers get from, yeah, they know that they need it to, okay, so here's what you need and here's how you use it. So,
Yeah.
and I think we'll dive into that a little bit later and how IHI can help with that.
Yeah, we're going to talk here shortly about how the sessions are coming together, what that engagement, what they're going to be fed when they're at the conference, and how it'll help retailers navigate that issue. But before we get there, which is next, I wanted to ask you, Craig. We've talked a lot about how IHI is different as a conference from what the industry might be used to engaging with. It's not your typical wholesaler market that the industry is used to. Can you talk about some of those differences and the impact that IHI brings that they may not be getting elsewhere in the industry?
Absolutely, Cody, and thank you. I think that's probably the biggest fundamental question is that most retailers that they attend their wholesaler trade shows. And when you think about those wholesaler trade shows, they really offer three main focus. One is buying, one are their programs, and lastly are all your vendor meetings. And you're always moving to that next step, right? We got to get this, we got 3 days or 2.5 days, whatever it might be. We have to get all of this accomplished. I got my team here, et cetera, et cetera. But I ask you, I guess, how often are you able at these opportunities to talk with retailers from across the country? They're experiencing the same exact problems you are, just different marketplaces. And how are they performing? Are you off as much as what you think you are? Or maybe you're performing the average or doing better than the average.
Yeah.
And to me, that is the fundamental difference between what a trade show and a conference is. The conference gives you ability, puts you in a resort format to have quality conversations with other industry peers, whether that is your wholesaler, whether that is key vendors, or whether that is a retailer you just met at the pool. I will have one anecdotal note from my old conference days. One retailer came up to me and said, Craig, this was the best conference I've ever had. And I was said, that's outstanding. What did we do to serve you better? And he said, absolutely nothing. I was like, okay. And he said, in the pool, I had a conversation with another retailer who XYZ is a joint vendor with us, and I'd lost a contract. Well, I'd found out that that vendor, if it's a government contract, will give you a discount. I won't ever lose another one of those again. And that's real money for us.
Yeah.
And then it's only through these conferences and these activities that you find out those things that you don't even know to go and look for right now, let
Yeah.
alone if you had the time to figure it out. And to me, that's the linchpin of exactly what a good conference does.
Yeah, that's the difference. I mean, listening to you talk in my retailer days, I didn't have time for any of that at my wholesalers, right? Like markets. I wanted time for that, but I was so focused on other aspects of my business. They may have had a next gen event where I had cocktails with friends and we caught up, but I was always like, I need more time of this to refine my business. And you're answering that with this conference.
Yeah,
I think it's really interesting too, because I've been reflecting in this time of disruption a lot of like how we react as leaders or how like we move through that. And oftentimes where we find people, we actually isolate ourselves and that can become dangerous for organizations because in that isolation, you're cutting yourself off from others that could be experiencing the same thing that you are. And so just this natural platform it's understandable that it might be like, well, I'm already overwhelmed and I'm just going to stay in my four walls and be where my team needs me and everything else will get figured out. But often, really, the most valuable thing you can discover are what other people are navigating and start making sense of some of the things that don't just by hearing others' ideas or strategies or solutions that you may not have considered yet. And I think that is, I mean, just to reiterate what you're saying, Craig, why IHI is more important now than ever, because that's what this conference is built around, is coming together, sharing those ideas. That is the networking opportunity, and we've intentionally built this conference that way, left room for that around the breakout sessions, around main stage, where is really what I'd like to talk about next as well. But any other comments on the networking side of it, anecdotal stories or anything from the
to
crew
me,
before
it's
we move
the
over?
simple. It simply boils down to how often do we truly get to work on our business as opposed to we're working in our business. I am just like every person that is on this call. I'm an independent contractor, if you will, and a small business owner, and I know all those pain points. And just for me to be able to sit back for 5 minutes and breathe and think about the market and how can I take advantage of that seems like a luxury I don't have.
Yeah.
And this is an opportunity to carve out 2.5 days and go and actually put in that work because you don't know what the yield is going to be until you get back home.
Yeah. That I think takes us to the content portion of the conference. What we've intentionally built with the sessions that those the attendees will do as well, where they engage with curated content that we are really wanting to be as focused and as narrowed on to what they are facing every single day as possible. Now, Lindsey, I'm sure you would admit this as well. That's been more challenging with everything that we've been talking about than ever before, right? It used to be we could set these sessions early on, start promoting them and get them out there. But it seems like that's become a little bit more challenging just because of how rapidly things are changing. But it's just made it kind of that much more fun at the same time to truly understand what is the pulse of the industry and how do we deliver that in these sessions so that they're making the most of the time, almost kind of setting the stage for what they get to take to that networking side of it and say, I just heard that, I heard this, and I can't wait to hear about what you've built for main stage. But when it comes to the breakout sessions, we intentionally set up these tracks that if you've been to IHI before, you're going to be familiar with. But the content within is hyper focused on what retailers are dealing with today. And we didn't just bring in anyone, right? We're not just bringing outside industry folks in to talk about this. We're talking about experts from our industry that are going to give these folks that come into the breakout sessions just gold nuggets that they can continue to take with them and start implementing. And so we're not just saying, hey, here's the pie in the sky idea. Here are all these answers that are going to solve your problems that are in front of you. We're actually able to give that to them and give them actionable points afterwards. And one of the areas that, since we were talking technology a little earlier, that I know this is going to be a really cool perspective. And Lindsey, you're actually sharing this in the breakout sessions is how retailers need to embrace that technology, but don't know where to start. You're actually going to be leading a breakout session of a panelist of retailers who are talking about how they're using that technology and the initial investment, time, money, how that might seem overwhelming, but you're attaching that to the return on investment, that ROI, and why it's more than worth it, right? That's the blurb I read for the breakout session, but you're going to make that come to life when you have that discussion with the panelist. Can you talk about, kind of what that will look like, the breakout sessions, and then just transition of how you're bringing that to the main stage as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, I'm really excited about that breakout session because, as I've been working on reaching out to retailers who I think would be just a great fit. And, we've had so many great retailers doing amazing things in technology. We'll have a heavy focus on AI that, that seems to be where the most questions are around is how do I use AI? And, one of the panelists I'm bringing in is just experimenting with it. And I think that, it'll be great to hear from these retailers who have been using it for a while and, can speak to experience that way. But I think there's going to be value in bringing in this retailer who is just experimenting now and, like so many other retailers. And so can really, kind of we walk hand in hand, step by step as they're diving into it. And so I think that's going to be a really great session. And so, yeah. And so then, all these topics that matter most to you guys, the retailers, you'll see those on the main stage too. We've really taken the focus this year for the main stage on the independent channel and, have chosen speakers for the main stage who are from the independent channel. They are real retailers facing real challenges who are using real solutions. And so kicking it all off, though, will be NHPA's own Dan Tratenchak. He'll do our State of the Industry address. He's really just going to take a comprehensive look at the current state of the independent home improvement channel. He'll highlight some of those key trends and challenges and opportunities that are shaping the industry, and just give us a look at how the market's really performing using real live data that we'll have gathered in the weeks and even days leading up to it. I know Dan is always so great. Like he's always just tweaking that presentation right up almost to the last minute to make sure that he's sharing the most up-to-date information that will benefit independent retailers the most. And so take a look back at what's happening and then also give us a little peek into the future, where the rest of 2026 will go and then 2027 beyond. So really looking forward to him kicking that off on our main stage. Next, then we'll have our aligning strategy, structure, and opportunity for growth. We're bringing in Jared Brown from Aubuchon Hardware and Matt Nichols from Koopman Lumber, two powerhouse operations in the independent channel who know a lot about growth. And so I'm really excited for Jared and Matt to really share those best practices, those strategies on aligning business strategy and organizational structure, and then aligning those with all the emerging market opportunities coming on. They're going to highlight some practical ways to strengthen operations and adapt to those changing customer expectations that we talked about, and just really help retailers in that audience build a foundation for long-term success and growth in our industry.
Nice.
We're really excited to bring back Dave King from the Home Improvement Research Institute, and he'll unpack macroeconomics impact on the independent channel. He had a great session last year, and so we're excited to welcome him back to, shed some light on where the home improvement channel as a whole is heading, and then also looking at those macroeconomic factors. A lot of those things that are out of retailers' control, he'll share on those, but then also provide some ways on how um, retailers can control some of those uncontrollables. So that'll be a great one too. And then one of the last sessions that I'm really excited about on the main stage is our Shaping the Future of Independent Retail. Again, we've been talking about customer experience and customer expectations, and we'll have Pat Sullivan from Sullivan's Hardware talking about creating an engaging and memorable customer experience. Sullivan's Hardware is based here in Indianapolis, and if you're ever in this area, go to Sullivan's Hardware. Pat's doing amazing things there. They have everything from a restaurant on site. They have their pumpkin train at Halloween, the Christmas train during the holiday season, just some very cool things that are going on at Sullivan's Hardware that I'm really excited for Pat to share with us. And he's super entertaining. So that'll be a great time. And then along with Pat, we'll have Anthony Bugaki from Bugaki Enterprises. And Anthony's Bugaki Enterprises is completely e-commerce. It's independent hardware, but completely online. And so Anthony will be able to really give some great insights into the e-commerce side of the independent retail channel, which is where things are heading as well. So really excited to welcome all those to the main stage, and I think it'll be a great overall experience for our attendees.
Yeah, Lindsay, as you're talking, I'm sitting here thinking of like our intention with the breakout sessions, with the main stage sessions have been let's give those seeds so that they can plant them. And then through the experience of the conference, they can continue to grow and beyond, right? That's kind of been the intention of how we've set this up. But after listening to you, it's been a while since I've heard you talk so specifically about them. I'm like, we're not giving them seeds. I mean, these are plant starts for them. Like
Yep.
they're getting a growing start for those networking areas that Craig spoke on earlier. And the other part of that is we're intentionally designing that within the way that the conference is formatted this year, the way that we're carving out space. And Austin, I know you've been listening to us talk about that retailer experience a lot, and that's so important to this conference. But you're also preparing a really important part of this conference with the partner pavilion, how that engagement between retailers and the rest of the industry actually takes place. And so I know we're going to spend an upcoming webinar on that specifically, but I would love for you to talk a little bit more about us and give the inside scoop on what that's going to look like this year.
Thanks, Cody. Yeah, our partner pavilion is such a huge part of the overall IHI experience, and it's really designed to bring retailers face to face with the manufacturers and the service providers and the companies that are out there actively helping independents navigate today's challenges and the opportunities. Right now, as we discussed earlier, retailers are dealing with so much, so many challenges currently, margin pressures and labor challenges and changing consumer expectations, technology that's evolving so rapidly. And like Lindsay mentioned, so many of them, they know they need to adapt and they know they need to improve, but they don't always have the time to research the solutions on their own because they're so busy in their day to day. And I think that that's where our partner pavilion becomes so valuable. It really creates an opportunity for our attendees to have those real, meaningful conversations with trusted industry partners who understand the channel and that are focused on helping retailers improve their operations and increase efficiency and strengthen profitability, and ultimately just boost their position and set it up for long-term success. And I think what makes it different. It's not about just walking an exhibit hall like at the wholesaler markets and collecting brochures and marketing assets. Our partner pavilion, it becomes an extension of the educational experience that we have curated over the years. Retailers can continue the conversations that are sparked during our breakout sessions, during our general sessions, and they have the opportunity to ask those deeper questions with our exhibitors. They can explore new ideas. They can discover new products and solutions that can retailers can realistically implement into their stores. Every connection, every conversation within our partner pavilion has the potential to create real ROI for these retailers, whether it's saving time or just improving team performance, protecting those margins, or just uncovering new growth opportunities. At the end of the day, the Independent Home Improvement Conference is about helping retailers work on their business, not just in their business. And you've heard us say that a few times. Our partner pavilion plays a huge role in making that happen. So really excited for this year's partner pavilion. We're incredibly grateful for all of the support that our vendors have shown us. And I look forward to our second webinar when we can kind of dive a little bit deeper into what that's going to look like.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. I would love to pause here just for a second and see if any of our guests that are with us today have other questions that they have about anything we've talked about. And so feel free to put those into the chat. We'll start collecting those and we'll be happy to answer them. And while we have those coming in, Lindsey, I'm going to put you on the spot, an
Yep.
unprepared moment in this discussion. But Austin was talking about this vendor pavilion or the partner pavilion where they're going to be engaging with vendors, that networking, extending beyond just retailer to retailer engagement into the manufacturing and wholesaler, just the rest of that supply chain. But a really cool new aspect that I know we'll dive in deeper in the webinar series, but that we're introducing this year is highlighting Retailer's Choice,
Mhm.
which is this legacy award presented by NHPA. But we're bringing it to IHI in a new way. Will you just tease everyone that's on the call or listening
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
that's going to look like and kind of what that engagement, why it's so important that IHI has become the platform for that?
Yo, absolutely. Yeah, so Retailer's Choice, we are celebrating our 60th anniversary of choosing these outstanding products at so it started at the National Hardware Show in 1966. So yeah, so hitting that 60-year mark this year, where we have always had a panel of independent retailers to act as our judges, going out on the National Hardware show floor to find those products and then honoring those each year. And so this year, it's just been really fun to expand that. So we had our judges at NHS Concept of Commerce in March, but we also had them at each of the trade shows, all of our major wholesaler trade shows on the hardware and on the paint side. So we have 50 products this year, which is very,
Wow.
very cool. And we will have all of those products on display at IHI, and to be able to just celebrate those products and those innovations and so celebrate those, from the vendor side, and then also provide retailers who are there. Here's 50 products that other retailers, just like you, thought or think that will be bestsellers. So, we're not selling them, but this is just a great product discovery opportunity to for retailers who will be there in our partner pavilion.
Yeah, so I'm stoked that we get to bring that to IHI this year. I think it's going to be such a cool exhibit, if you will, in that way. And really, it's just the tip of the iceberg of the awards portion of IHI, right? Like this is a moment where we're celebrating excellence in our industry. Lindsey, you and I, we just, or NHPA just announced Top Guns and Young Retailer of the Year honorees coming from NHPA. Craig, I know Hardware Connection, it will be announcing Beacon Awards here earlier in the summer as well. And we take a moment, part of that networking, curated networking moment, if you will, at IHI is celebrating that at the awards gala, where we bring it all together and say, wow, look at what we are doing in the industry. And I'll be the first to admit there are a lot of amazing things that happen in our industry, but I know one of our strengths isn't stopping and truly celebrating that, right? And so we've sprinkled that in there this year, and we are going to spend a lot more time in the upcoming webinar sessions discussing what that looks like, why it's so important to us as those industry folks, and why it's really another one of those curated networking moments, not just in the awards ceremony, but in the independent celebration that really kicks off everything this year. We'll be diving more into that, but thanks for teasing us a little bit because I think there's so much packed into those moments as well, whether it's curated or just that poolside chat like Craig talked about earlier, that just ends up watering those starters that you've planted and gives it a chance to grow and turn into action. But so thank you for that.
Yeah, for sure.
Austin, what do we got? Any questions from the group?
I'm not seeing any questions currently, Cody. I think people are shy, but yeah, if you're out there, please don't hesitate to drop questions in the Q&A, and we'd be happy to address those. Or if you want to reach out to any of us personally via email or through LinkedIn, we'd be happy to help answer any questions that you have.
Yeah, sweet. You know, just as we're wrapping up today's conversation, I'll say that kind of the one thing that I'm like, it's rising to the top for me of everything we've discussed is just how that uncertainty tends to expose organizations. Like, are they operating intentionally? Are they having to be reactive? Like, do they have a plan? And I just think those retailers that are investing in leadership, in learning, in relationships, and strategic thinking during these turbulent or difficult periods are often the ones that are better positioned on the other side of it when that market stabilizes, even if it looks like a completely different environment. And so this is a season, where retailers they do need more information, but an event like IHI brings so much more than just more information that you can get by a search or what it is. I mean, this is getting perspective, it's bringing alignment, tapping into that community so you're not isolated. As we're finishing up, I would just love to hear some final thoughts from you folks before we close it out.
Yeah, kind of one final thing from me, Cody, is just this takeaway of, if you're an independent retailer out there and you are facing the challenges that we talked about on this webinar, you're not alone. And that is what the spirit of our conference is all about. We bring the entire industry together under one roof for education and for networking. If you're an ace retailer, you could probably learn something from a do it best retailer. Or if you're an Orgle retailer, you could probably learn something from a true value retailer, so on and so forth. And I think that's incredibly valuable. And when you pair that with our awesome, partner pavilion and these companies that are ready and willing and understand the channel and they want to help these retailers be better and more profitable, just like our mission here at NHPA. So you're out there, if you're a retailer, you're facing the same challenges that hundreds and thousands of other retailers are facing too, and IHI is ready to help you tackle those. So we look forward to the event.
Yeah, thanks, Austin. Lindsey, how about you?
Yeah, I think for me, just everything we've talked about, so much of it is out of our or out of retailers' control and out of our control. And so I am a self-prescribed control freak. And so I know that that can be really stressful, but really like we've just really strived to make sure that IHI addresses those things that you can control, that that there are areas so much may feel out of control and be out of control, but there are things that you can do. And it just takes, a couple first steps here. And so we're really hoping that that's what our attendees can really take away is like, here's some really practical best practices, takeaways. As soon as your feet land back in whatever state you come from, you can implement these and, be on your way to being able to control some of those things in a very uncontrollable environment.
Yeah, when you and Craig were talking earlier about all those pressures and how they're showing up, I just kept being like, oh, check. Yes. Okay. We've got a breakout session for that. Check. It just seems like you said it is set up to be able to address those head on. So let's bring it back into control that way. Craig, I'll hit it over to you as a final thought.
I guess I'll end with an old saying, and that is no one of us is smarter than all of us. And that is the fundamental building block of all conferences. We will bring people together, we will have them exchange ideas, not just goods and services. And fundamentally, they will be better off. And I truly, truly prescribe to that because I will guarantee everybody that attends, if you work this conference, you will walk away with at least 3 to 5 ideas for your business you probably have never even thought of.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
how often do you get that?
Yeah, it's treasure, right? Come on down and join us. Well, hey guys, I really appreciate the conversation we had today. I'm actually really looking forward to the other webinars we're going to be doing in this series. Our next conversation will take place on June 9th at 2 p.m. Eastern Time. And that's when you'll discover what you'll learn and who you'll meet at IHI 2026. In that next webinar, we're going to break down the general and breakout sessions even more, share how the relationships are built in the partner pavilion. Austin teased us with that today, but go into how that will lead to ROI and business impact. And we're going to talk with some of those trusted industry voices, those attendees that keep coming back and hear why this event is a part of their schedule, why they won't scratch it off when things get tough, but they commit to it and are among the first to sign up year after year. And so very excited that we get to connect with all of you again in that webinar. But before then, I just want to encourage all of you that don't wait. You can register today for the conference. You can go to ihiconference.org. And for joining us on this webinar, we've got a special code that you can use to save $100 off of the registration. That code is SAVE100, SAVE 100, SAVE 100. You can plug that in there. And for joining us today, we'll send you follow-up communication as well so that you have that code and can plug it into registration. But we appreciate you taking time out of your busy schedules, hearing more about the conference, and even more, we look forward to seeing you in Orlando in July. So we'll see you guys there, but we'll see you next time as well. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.